David! The feds owe me!
This is federal property. Stand down!
David's alive! In Brazil!
You know, it all started on this crisp fall morning in our little cul-de-sac just outside Atlanta, Georgia. Mike Harlan, minding my own business with a cup of black coffee in hand, staring at my SUV parked right there in the driveway like it had been every day since I moved in 6 months back, and then bam. This woman comes storming up like a freight train, eyes blazing, papers flapping in the wind, yelling at the top of her lungs. "That truck's mine, you hear me? God sent it straight to me as payback." I nearly spilled my coffee, thinking, what in the world is going on here? Had I stepped into some kind of neighborhood fever dream? Or was this lady for real? But oh man, she was dead serious, and little did she know, that SUV wasn't just any ride, it was federal property, and I wasn't just some random guy. I was the chief of interior affairs for the feds, keeping my job under wraps for security reasons. And this confrontation was about to spiral into something none of us saw coming. Let me back up a bit. Paint the picture for UM52 now, been grinding away in federal service for over 2 decades, starting from the bottom as a field investigator, climbing up through late nights, poring over case files that'd make your head spin, dealing with everything from land disputes to contractor fraud that hits close to home for folks like us. I'd just gotten this promotion, which meant relocating to this quiet suburb in Roswell, Georgia. Nice houses, manicured lawns, the kind of place where people wave hello but keep their drama behind closed doors, or so I thought. My SUV? Yeah. It looked civilian, regular plates, no flashy badges or anything, but inside, it had all the government tags, VIN numbers tied to Uncle Sam. Because in my line of work, you don't advertise you're the guy who digs into messy federal messes unless you have to. That morning, I was just trying to enjoy the peace, maybe think about the day ahead at the office, when Susan Whitaker, that's her name, though I didn't know it yet, comes barreling across the street from her house 2 doors down, clutching what looked like a stack of official-looking docs, pointing at my truck like it had insulted her mama. "That's my restitution vehicle," she hollers, her voice cracking with this mix of fury and something deeper, like raw pain bubbling up. "The feds took my husband's life and won just like it. No, this one's mine by divine right." I set my mug down slow, feeling that old training kick in, you know, the kind where you stay calm even when everything's going sideways, because right away, I could tell this wasn't just some HOA nitpick about grass height or trash bins. This was personal, tied to grief that had festered too long. Susan was in her mid-40s, hair a bit wild that day, wearing a faded cardigan over jeans, and her eyes, man, they were haunted, like she'd been fighting ghosts for years. Turns out, her husband David had been a federal contractor, involved in some shady land development deals I'd actually looked into 3 years prior. Case stuck with me, because the details never added up. His truck found wrecked off a back road, near the Florida border, blood traces that seemed staged, body never recovered. I'd suspected foul play, or worse, a setup, but it got shelved as a cold case. And here she was, convinced my SUV was the universe's way of balancing the scales for David's death at the hands of some anonymous government driver. "Hand over the keys," she demands, waving those papers fake as a $3 bill. I could tell even from a distance, printed on what looked like stolen community letterhead. "This is from the HOA board seizure order for unpaid debts to widows like me." I chuckle inwardly, but keep it cool, saying, "Ma'am, this is my work truck, ain't handing it over to anyone, especially not on some made-up divine order." Her face flushes redder than a Georgia peach in summer, and she whips out her phone, dialing 911 right there, sputtering into the receiver. "Yes, emergency, there's a man here blocking God's will, refusing to give me the truck that's rightfully mine as compensation for my husband's murder." As she's pacing my driveway, ranting to the dispatcher about heavenly justice and federal conspiracies, I start piecing it together. Susan wasn't just angry. She was broken, twisting her wedding ring like it was the only anchor left, probably from 3 years of unanswered questions, insurance denials, and that gnawing void where David should be. I chatted with neighbors enough to know the backstory. The HOA here was tight-knit, almost cult-like, with Susan as the former vice chair, always pushing for community purity, rules that bordered on control-freak territory, fines for unpainted fences, bans on certain car colors, all under the guise of keeping property values up. But her real beef stemmed from losing David, blaming the feds for a hit-and-run that left her drowning in debt. And now, seeing my unmarked SUV, it triggered this delusion that I was part of the cover-up, some low-level cog in the machine that stole her life. Neighbors started peeking out. Jack Benson next door, this retired tech guy who'd installed security cams everywhere after his own run-in with package thieves, filming the whole thing with that shaky hand of his, wiping sweat on his jeans like he sensed trouble brewing. Then there's Edna Thompson across the way, sweet old lady in her 70s, former fed herself from the agriculture department, giving me these subtle nods like she knew exactly who I was but wouldn't blow my cover. And Carla Ruiz, down the block, clutching her tote bag like it held secrets. Turns out she was the HOA treasurer, and Susan had been dipping into funds for her legal crusade, which explained Carla's guilty flinches every time money came up. Deputy Alex Monroe rolls up about 15 minutes later, this young guy with a crew cut and that eager vibe like he's auditioning for the FBI, stepping out of his patrol car with notepad in hand, looking between us like he'd drawn the short straw. "Ma'am, what's the issue here?" he asks, and Susan thrusts her phony papers at him, declaring, "This man's occupying property owed to him a federal blood debt, officer, and the HOA authorizes immediate transfer." Alex scratches his head, glances at me, and I hand over my covered docs legit contractor papers my agency preps for situations just like this, though it always feels a tad slimy lying to another batch. Citizens can't just seize vehicles, ma'am, he says patiently, but Susan's not backing down, her voice rising. David's spirit demands it. 3 years I've waited for justice, and now it's here. I felt a pang then, you know? Grief like that, it warps you. Makes the impossible seem righteous. And as Alex diffuses things, promising to look into it, I couldn't shake the feeling this was just the tip of something uglier, especially when I recalled David's file. Minimal evidence, funds missing from his contracts, whispers of embezzlement. But for now, Susan storms off, muttering about escalation, leaving me wondering if I'd have to break cover sooner than planned. The next few days turned into this slow burn nightmare, where Susan's obsession ramped up like a bad thriller. She'd show up at odd hours, leaving notes on my windshield quoting Bible verses about restitution, or rallying neighbors at HOA meetings, painting me as this shady outsider disrupting the community's harmony. Her motive? Clear as day now. After David's accident, she'd lost everything, the house nearly foreclosed, friends drifting away because her rants about government plots got too intense, and the HOA became her power base, a way to control what little she had left, manipulating rules to target anyone who reminded her of the system that failed her. I'd catch Jack staring at my SUV from his window. That tech background of his making him suspicious. He'd worked on federal fleet tracking systems, so he spotted the subtle mods, like reinforced bumpers or hidden antennas, but he kept quiet, pacing his yard, rag in hand, like he was wrestling his own demons. Edna, bless her, would slip me cookies with notes saying, "Hang in there, sonny, seen worse in my day." Her way of signaling solidarity without outing me. Carla? She avoided eye contact, but I overheard her whispering to Jack about missing funds. Susan had siphoned over $10,000 for legal fees and printing those bogus docs, all while Carla covered it up out of pity, fearing Susan's wrath if exposed. Things escalated when Susan announced her reclamation ceremony, inviting the whole block, even local news, to witness her taking my truck as community justice. She'd forged more papers, binge-watching legal shows for jargon, convinced this would expose the Fed's corruption and restore her dignity. I documented it all, per protocol, but inside, I was torn. Duty said wait for a clear crime, but humanity screamed intervene before she ruined herself. Jack's cams caught her practicing at night, whispering to an imaginary David, "This is for us. Honey, the truck that killed you will pay." Creepy as hell. And when she vandalized my SUV one midnight, spray painting "debt paid" in red, slashing tires with a utility knife, hammer to the mirror, it crossed into felony territory. $3,800 in damage to government property, all while sobbing, "For you, David. Same make, same killers." I reported it quietly, but held off on full reveal, watching her delusion grow, fueled by that HOA power trip and unresolved loss. Jack's big break came accidentally reviewing footage for a neighborhood theft. He hacked into old contractor databases. Old habits die hard, and found the bombshell. David wasn't dead. Alive and kicking in Rio de Janeiro as Diego Vargas, lounging on beaches funded by siphoned contract money and life insurance he'd rigged before faking the crash. Jack agonized for days to tell Susan and shatter her world, or let her barrel toward prison. His motive? Simple decency. He'd lost a brother to fraud years back, knew the pain of betrayal. Meanwhile, Susan's event loomed, live-streamed for maximum impact, her promoting it as Widows vs. Washington, blind to the trap she was setting. The day arrived like a storm, Front Street packed with curious onlookers, cameras rolling, Susan in a black blouse like a warrior queen, crowbar gleaming as she approaches my truck, speech firing up. "Today, we reclaim what's owed. Federal thugs took my David, but God delivers justice." The stream hits 12,000 viewers, chat exploding with "Go Karen," and "This is nuts." Washing my truck, heart pounding, as she pries at the door, ranting, "You're part of the machine that destroys families. Hand it over or face divine wrath." That's my cue. I step forward, voice steady but laced with that Fed authority. "Folks, what you're seeing is a federal crime in progress." Pull out my badge, hold it high. "I'm Chief Mike Harlan, Federal Interior Affairs. This vehicle's government property, and you've just attempted theft." Susan freezes, crowbar dropping with a clang. Face draining white as whispers ripple through the crowd. "Federal? Oh crap." Her world cracks, but Jack jumps in. Phone out. "Susan, David's Ollie Vane, Brazil, living off what he stole from you and the feds." The wail she lets out gut trenching, a mix of rage and heartbreak echoes as she crumples, murmuring, "Alive? He left me. For this." Carla confesses then. "And the HOA money, you took $10,000 for this farce," sealing the meltdown before 20,000 eyes. Deputy Monroe cuffs her gently, her repeating, "Betrayed. All a lie." As the stream hits viral status. Investigation blew wide open. Feds swarmed, uncovering David's full scam. Not just faking death for insurance, but embezzling millions from land deals, draining Susan's savings while gaslighting her about work stress. He got nabbed in Rio, whining about his assets, sentenced to 7 years, cleaning Fed vehicles in prison. Poetic, right? Susan got 2 years, therapy heavy, emerging broken but wiser, now flipping burgers, haunted by memes of her breakdown. Jack consults on security, Edna mentors feds, Alex climbed to federal ranks, Carla advocates against fraud. But here's the twist that still gets me digging deeper. We found David had a whole other family in Brazil, kids and all, funded by the scam that wrecked Susan. Makes you wonder, was her rage justified, even misplaced? Or does betrayal like that excuse the chaos? Drop a comment. What would you do if grief turned you into the villain? Like if this hit home, subscribe for more real-life twists, and share your own neighborhood nightmares. Let's talk justice, folks.